Welcome back to Marvelous Videos, where today we'll be discussing the renowned Wolfman, portrayed by Lon Chaney Jr., an American actor. He played the role of Larry Talbot in multiple movies, a man who had an alter ego as a werewolf. Larry was actually a Welsh aristocrat born in the town of Llanwelly, and this character is actually the most famous werewolf in the entire horror film industry. Prior to Chaney, there had been another werewolf, but that guy didn't get as much attention or even sympathy from the audience, hence Chaney showed up on the scene. Let's delve into the diverse appearances of Larry, aka Chaney, in his various movie appearances. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Wolfman, 1941. Larry Talbot was the son of John Talbot and was the second in line to inherit his father's estate. Larry grew up largely ignored and unrecognized by his parents. As he reached adulthood, Larry decided to leave home in search of peace and build a solid identity for himself. A few years later, in 1941, Larry received the unfortunate news of his older brother's death. Upon hearing this, Larry returned home, where John welcomed him back with open arms and immediately informed him that he would inherit the estate. Larry soon encountered Gwen Conliffe, who lived with her father above their shop, Charles Conliffe Antiques. Larry used his father's telescope to watch Gwen and quickly developed feelings for her. During a visit to the shop, Gwen persuaded Larry to purchase a silver-tipped wolf's head cane, which also had a pentagram attached to its side. Larry asked her out, but it was revealed that Gwen was engaged to Frank Andrews. At the Gypsy Festival, Gwen, her friend Jenny Williams, and Larry visited the fortune teller Bella's tent. Later, Jenny is attacked by a werewolf, but Larry manages to fend off the beast with his new cane. He was bitten in the process. Gwen and Maleva, a gypsy woman, bring Larry home. Meanwhile, both Bella and Jenny die from their injuries. Bella was revealed to be Maleva's son and a werewolf, which came as shocking news, especially to Larry, who initially dismissed the idea. Maleva gave Larry a pentagram charm, telling him it was a symbol of protection. She also warned him that anyone who survives a werewolf's bite would become one. As confusing thoughts began to consume Larry, the villagers also grew suspicious. Larry's bite wound had already healed, and the sheriff was uncertain whether it was Larry's cane or the wolf that had killed both victims. Later that night, Larry transformed into a werewolf for the first time and killed a gravedigger. When he confided his fears to his father, John dismissed them as symptoms of lycanthropy, believing Larry merely thought he was a wolf. Despite Larry's good intentions and attempts to protect the villagers, both Gwen and his father dismissed his confessions as delusional. John eventually tied Larry to a chair, but as night fell, Larry transformed again and attacked Gwen. In the ensuing struggle, John kills Larry using his silver cane. Larry was buried in the Talbot family crypt, with Maleva speaking a prayer and laying wolfsbane flowers on the grave. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, 1943. The story picks up 4 years after Larry Talbot's apparent death in the 1941 Wolfman movie. Larry, who is believed to be dead, is resurrected when two greedy robbers disturb his grave, hoping to find valuables buried with him. As they open the grave, the light of the full moon falls upon Larry's body, bringing him back to life. Upon awakening, Larry discovers that he's immortal. In a frenzy, he kills one of the robbers while the other manages to escape. Larry then wanders into the capital city of Cardiff. A constable finds him and notices a bruise on his head, a remnant of the fatal blow dealt by his father, Sir John Talbot. Larry is in such shock that he has no sense of time or even of his own death. He's taken to Queen's Hospital, where Dr. Frank Mannering cares for him. However, when the full moon rises, Larry transforms into the Wolfman once again and kills a constable. Despite Larry's desperate attempts to warn others that he's a killer, no one believes him. His claims are dismissed as delusion caused by lycanthropy, and he is further restrained. Overwhelmed by guilt and horror at the killings, Larry escapes from the hospital during his next transformation and returns to his village, Llanwelly. There, he meets with Maleva, who listens to his story and advises he seek help from a scientist who might be able to rid him of his curse, Dr. Frankenstein. Together, they journey to the village of Assaria in search of the doctor, only to find that he has died, leaving behind a vast estate. During another full moon, Larry transforms and kills a young girl. In his desperation, he encounters Frankenstein's monster, hoping the creature might be able to help him find the doctor's notes, but the situation quickly spirals out of control. Larry then seeks out Dr. Frankenstein's last known descendant, Elsa, who, although unaware of her father's secrets, sympathizes with Larry. Dr. Mannering eventually comes to believe Larry's story, but is still unable to find a cure. Elsa hands over her father's notes to the doctor, and they both wait for a solution to Larry's curse. However, when Dr. Mannering meets the monster, he has a change of heart. Instead of destroying the creature, he enhances its power on the night of a full moon. This leads to a brutal fight between the Wolfman and the monster. Meanwhile, a villager sets off an explosion near the dam which causes a flood that washes away the monster, the Wolfman, and the entire castle. In the final scenes of the movie, their bodies are shown frozen in ice in an underground glacial cavern. House of Frankenstein, 1944. In this follow-up to Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, we witness Dr. Gustav Niemann, a prisoner, and his assistant, Daniel, escaping the prison. They stumble upon the bodies of Monster and Larry and free them. The Frankenstein monster's body had almost given way, but Talbot's body was intact. Following this, Niemann promises Lawrence that he can cure him permanently by putting a new brain in him. However, he had a barter in mind. He needed Frankenstein's notes and records in exchange for his medical service. However, Dr. Niemann also fell for his evil desires, just like Dr. Mannering. Niemann wanted to take revenge on the people who had imprisoned him, and he completely forgot about his agenda of freeing Talbot from his curse. While all of this was happening, Larry met a gypsy woman named Ilonka who had come along with Daniel. He was in love with her, but as their journey continued, she fell for Larry. They eventually reached Visaria, where they rested in a castle and decided to use it as their base of operations. That night, Larry transformed again and killed a man. Ilonka soon discovered Larry's secret after Daniel told her everything. Determined to stop him, she devised a plan. Ilonka melted her silver necklace into a bullet and loaded it into a pistol. When Larry transformed once again and attacked Ilonka, she mustered the courage to shoot him in the chest. However, Ilonka had sacrificed too much of her strength in the process and didn't survive the encounter. Daniel, devastated, blamed the entire situation on Niemann, but everything had already gone awry as the monster had awoken just moments earlier. The movie ends with the monster fleeing, carrying Niemann away from the castle. Their escape proves futile as they sink into quicksand and perish. House of Dracula, 1945. The movie opens with Dr. Franz Edelman running a castle. A few years later, a mysterious bat circles over the castle and transforms into Count Dracula. The Count enters into a conversation with the doctor, informing him of his plans and introducing himself under the alias Baron Latos. He seeks a cure for vampirism, and Dr. Edelman agrees to help. Dr. Edelman informs the Count that his condition might be cured with the aid of blood transfusions. Meanwhile, Larry Talbot arrives at the castle, also seeking a solution to his own curse. The doctor asks Talbot to be patient, but as the full moon rises, Talbot, fearing another transformation, turns himself over to the police. Inspector Holtz brings Edelman and Malizia to see Talbot, who explains his predicament. Edelman theorizes that it isn't the full moon that triggers Talbot's transformation, but rather pressure on his brain. Terrified of committing another murder, Talbot jumps off a cliff, but then attacks the doctor. However, he's on the brink of transformation and soon returns to his human form. In the cave below, they find Frankenstein's monster in a catatonic state, still grasping Niemann's body. In the next scene, Dracula attempts to claim a new victim. He tries to seduce Malizia, but she outwits him by brandishing a crucifix in his face. Meanwhile, Dr. Edelman continues to perform daily transfusions on Dracula in his lab. Nina, the assistant, catches the Count in front of a mirror, noticing that he casts no reflection. She also informs Edelman of the Count's ill intentions towards Malizia. The doctor, however, has other plans. He intends to destroy Dracula. But Dracula, being smarter than the doctor, reverses the flow of the transfusion. Meanwhile, Talbot wakes up and engages in a fight with Dracula. Wary of the crucifix, Dracula returns to his coffin. Edelman drags the coffin into the open, and as the sun rises, Dracula is destroyed. Edelman then starts to feel sick. His body can't handle the evil in Dracula's blood. His reflection disappears, and he begins to resemble an evil version of Hyde. In his madness, he attacks and kills his gardener by slashing his throat. The townspeople, mistaking Edelman for Talbot, target him. Edelman then awakens the monster and kills Nina. He proceeds to kill the policeman and Holtz by electrocuting them. Talbot takes the deceased policeman's gun and shoots the Hyde-like version of Edelman, who dies on the floor. Talbot then attacks the monster by pushing some shelves over him. A fire breaks out, and the townspeople evacuate the blazing castle. The monster is trapped inside as the roof collapses on top of him. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, 1948. The film opens with Talbot making an urgent call to a baggage claim room in La Mirada all the way from London. He's trying to prevent a looming danger. However, before he can fully communicate his warning, the full moon rises and he transforms into the Wolfman, causing the call to be disconnected. Wilbur, the worker on the other end of the call, dismisses it as a prank and ignores it. McDougal, to whom the parcel was actually intended and about whom Larry was trying to warn Wilbur, arrives, demanding his parcel. The parcel contains the bodies of the Frankenstein monster and the original Count Dracula. Due to mishandling by Wilbur and Chick, they're instructed to deliver the parcels to McDougal's House of Horrors. Upon opening the first parcel, the Count's coffin is discovered. Meanwhile, the Count awakens and hypnotizes Wilbur. When Chick and McDougal arrive, they're unable to find Wilbur or the Count. Furious, McDougal accuses the boys of theft and has them arrested. Later, Dracula and the monster land upon Dr. Sandra's castle. She'd been posing as Wilbur's girlfriend for a while now, all under the scheme of the Count. They had planned to replace the brain of the monster with that of Wilbur. After the delivery boys are bailed out, they decide to visit Sandra first. Meanwhile, Joan Raymond, who is secretly working for the insurance company handling McDougal's claims, is plotting to gain access to the exhibits. Larry has also learned about the status of the monster and the Count. He rents an apartment across from Wilbur and Chick's place and then approaches them to ask for their help. Next, we see Joan Raymond trying to woo Wilbur, and he falls for her act. All three of them visit Sandra's castle to pick her up for the masquerade ball. Larry realizes that it's Dracula's castle. Dr. Lajos, who is actually Dracula in disguise, assumes an alternate identity that night. Talbot informs Wilbur of the whole plan and they search the castle. They all visit the ball, and upon encountering Dracula, Talbot questions him. Dracula denies the accusations completely, dismissing them as part of his disguise and nothing more. He's accompanied by Sandra, who has been bitten by Dracula and is now his slave. Dracula excuses himself and starts to dance with Joan. Meanwhile, Sandra begins her plan by luring Wilbur alone into the woods. She tries to bite him, but Wilbur is saved by an abrupt interruption by Chick and Larry. They start to look for Joan, and Larry is seen stalking Wilbur. As Larry transforms into the Wolfman, he attacks McDougal. McDougal thinks Chick has attacked him because of his wolf costume for the ball. Dracula is seen hypnotizing both Wilbur and Chick. Sandra, along with Dracula, takes both of them and Joan back to the castle. Talbot reaches out to Chick and informs him about everything that's happened. Upon hearing all the facts, Chick readily volunteers to help Talbot resolve the situation. Talbot and Chick finally manage to rescue Wilbur. Wilbur is informed by Sandra of their plan to use his brain for the monster, but Dracula hypnotizes Wilbur again and calls him back to the lab where he's working on the monster. Sandra is seen all prepared to open Wilbur's skull when Wilbur's friends storm in. Larry transforms into the Wolfman, and seeing that, Dracula tries to escape. However, the monster wakes up and throws Sandra out the window. Everyone escapes, and the professor sets a fire in the place that kills the monster for good. And during the tussle between the Count and Talbot, both face an unfortunate death as they fall into the rocky sea below the castle. Van Helsing, 2004. Lawrence Talbot appears in the 2004 film Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman, as a new character called Velkin Valerius, played by Will Kemp. Velkin is bitten by a werewolf and becomes known as the Wolfman. Unlike in earlier films, a werewolf will rip out of its human skin rather than shift slowly. The Wolfman, 2010. This movie takes us to the year 1891 when Ben Talbot was killed by a wolf. He had a brother, Lawrence Talbot, who returned home to learn about his brother's disappearance. He also reunited with his father, who informed him of Ben's unfortunate demise. There was much speculation in town regarding the identity of the murderer. Some believed it to be a wolf, while others suspected the Romani or a wild animal. Lawrence is also seen visiting his family home, where his mother committed suicide. He harbored a lot of difficult feelings connected to the event, and he had to be sent to a hospital in London to overcome this traumatic experience. When the full moon rose, Lawrence visited the Romani. However, things took a turn for the worse when a werewolf attacked a dancing bear, which was allegedly believed to be the killer. The werewolf pounced and killed several townspeople and the bear, but also bit Lawrence. Maleva, an old gypsy woman, saved Lawrence from the crowd, who were nearly ready to kill him, believing he could be the next werewolf. Despite being bitten, Lawrence experienced a speedy recovery. Another series of events unfolds when Inspector Aberline comes to investigate Lawrence, suspecting him of murdering people the night before. Sir John also locks himself in a room. Meanwhile, Aberline and the police arrest Lawrence and send him back to Lambeth Hospital. However, things reach a turning point when Sir John comes clean with the truth to Lawrence. He discloses that he was bitten by an infected boy in India who was suffering from lycanthropy. He also admits that he bit Lawrence and takes full responsibility for the murders in town. Sir John has now accepted his curse and transforms willingly with each full moon. In a moment of reflection, he expresses how he used to lock himself away every full moon and tried to commit suicide for years. Now, he's a changed man and feels complete. However, he leaves a razor with Lawrence in case he feels the need to take the same action. Dr. Henniger was overseeing Lawrence at the hospital. He was conducting case studies and Larry tried to warn him about the upcoming events. However, no one listened to him and they just continued with their work. As the full moon rose, Larry transformed and killed everyone. After escaping, Larry finds himself in the arms of Gwen. They confess their love for each other. Gwen, worried about Larry's fate, consults Maleva for a cure. However, Maleva informs Gwen that no such cure exists. On the other hand, Aberline prepared himself and his team with silver bullets to get rid of Larry completely. Later, Larry tries to kill Sir John using the silver bullets. However, Sir John had removed the cartridge powder from the bullets years ago. When the full moon rises, both of them turn into werewolves. In wild combat, Sir John loses the fight and his life. Larry then runs towards Gwen and tries to attack her. Gwen tries to reason with Larry and he instantly recognizes her. Gwen ultimately kills him with a silver bullet and Larry is grateful to be put out of his misery by the love of his life. The movie ends with a portrayal of a fearful Aberline. The full moon is rising and Aberline is thinking about his future as he has just been bitten by Lawrence. Wolfman 2025. In May of 2020, Ryan Gosling was cast as the Wolfman in a forthcoming remake of the titular character. Lauren Schuker-Bloom and Rebecca Angelo co-wrote the script based on an original story pitched by Gosling. In 2023, Gosling was announced to have been replaced by Christopher Abbott, and Lee Winnell would direct. Marvelous verdict. The Wolfman is definitely the most horrific and gruesome character in horror film history. He's left a hairy impact all throughout cinema history. Quite often, he tries to play the part of a hero, but his overbearing evil side pressures him to commit evil acts continuously. His ability to make the right decision as Talbot resonated with the audience and made him a hero despite his multiple murders. The scripts and the cast have all played a great role in portraying the multiple stories and trying to evoke feelings of acceptance amongst the audience. That's all we got for you this time, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. This is Wizard Wheezy signing off. Have a good one, be safe out there, and thanks for watching.